Okay, so for 5.1, we covered pretty much all these vocabulary words that are used when we talk about algebra. And so we started by identifying key words. So let's say I have 3y. This is called a term. A term is when you combine a number and a letter together using multiplication. So what's actually happening here is this is 3 times y. But obviously now that we're using variables, this is very confusing to have an x in there. Is that x or is that times? So we don't write it like that anymore, all right? We just put them beside each other and we assume that that means that they're being multiplied. So really, we combine a bunch of terms together to create something called a polynomial. So now I have 3y, and I'm going to add 2x plus 5. Now what I'm doing is I'm just combining a bunch of terms being a number and a letter attached together by multiplication, and then I'm separating them with addition and or subtraction symbols. And so this first one is a term. We have 2x, that's another term, and we have 5, that's another term. Now with the 5, it's still a term. It doesn't have any letter, but it's still its own separate thing. And so in this case, we would have 3 terms, and they're all separated by either an adding or a subtracting sign. Now, another keyword that we learned actually last year is the 3 right here. That is the number that's multiplying a variable. We call that a coefficient. And the letter that's being multiplied is called a variable. Now, that word should be quite familiar to us by this point. And then the whole thing is called a term. When we combine a bunch of terms together, we create something called a polynomial. Now, there's obviously different types of polynomials that we want to identify. So first off, let's say we have 2y. This right here is one term because it doesn't have anything else attached to it with adding or subtracting. So we call this a monomial. Then let's say we have 2y plus 3x. When we see that, we have one term and we have another term. That's 2 terms. That makes it a binomial. Then let's say we take 2y plus 3x plus 5. That's start here and we continue until, we get an adding or subtracting sign. That's one term. We start here, continue, until we get an adding or subtracting sign. That's 2 terms. And we go here until the end. That's 3 terms. That is called a trinomial. Anything greater than 3 terms is called a polynomial. So for example, if I had 2y plus 3x minus 5 minus 7y, minus 7a plus 4b, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 terms. A polynomial is just more than 3. Then the other vocabulary that we looked at is the degree of a term. So if I take 2x, the degree of this term is whatever the exponent is, the sum of the exponents is. So first of all, this x, the exponent that this x has is 1. We don't write it because we assume that it's there. So the degree of this term would be 1. Now, if, for example, I have 2xy, we got to remember each of these are to the exponent of 1. And to get the degree of a term, we're going to go 1 plus 1. That's going to give us 2. That is the degree of this term. Now, let's say I have 2x squared y. We do the exact same thing, except this y, we can't forget that has an exponent of 1. We're going to go 2 plus 1, and that's going to be 3, and that's going to be the degree of this term. Now, when we go and we combine all these terms together to make a polynomial, so let's say 2x plus 2xy plus 2x squared y. To find the degree of the polynomial, we want to pick the one with the highest degree of the term. So we go here, we go, okay, this x is to the exponent 1. There's no other exponent to add to it, so the degree of this term is 1. These are each to the exponent 1. When we add them together, we get a degree of 2. This one's to the degree of 2. This one's to the exponent 2. This one's to the exponent 1. When we add them together, we get the degree of 3. And now when we compare them, we choose the highest one. The degree of this polynomial would be 3. And that is all the vocabulary that we covered for the first section of algebra.